All right. Hello, I'm Juliana McKinney, Community Relations Associate here at the Gardens at Town Square. Before we start today's presentation on mind-body solutions for pain management, I would love to share a little bit with you about your host, the Gardens at Town Square. The Gardens is conveniently located near downtown Bellevue and just steps away from local favorites like the French Bakery, Shops at the Bravern, and the Bellevue Public Library. We are also just minutes from medical centers such as Overlake and Kaiser. The Gardens is known for its feeling of independence and vibrancy, a relationship with the University of Washington, and lifelong learning focus. Its warm hospitality and lovely amenities, including one of the brightest and most cheerful dining venues, plus a serene private garden courtyard. The Gardens features a wide variety of newly renovated apartments, including studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and even a 3-bedroom option. Please check out our website to see a new self-guided virtual tour of some of these floor plan styles. Residential options include independent living, assisted living, or memory care. Tours are currently available, including for the rare 3-bedroom option, which has just finished renovation and ready for viewing in person. And now on to our presentation, Mind-Body Solutions for Pain Management. Our presenter today is Dr. Brad Lichtenstein, who is a licensed naturopathic physician in private practice and professor at Bastyr University. He serves as an attending physician for the Mind-Body Medicine biofeedback clinics at the Bastyr Center for Natural Health and has a strong clinical and teaching focus on developing psycho-emotional and spiritual health while dealing with chronic, life-challenging illnesses. Welcome, Dr. Lichtenstein.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi there. I see a bunch of names and a few faces. So hi to the faces that I see. Hi to everyone. Thank you for taking time today from this absolutely gorgeous sunny day, if you like sun in Seattle. So I'm here to talk about mind-body approaches to chronic pain management. And I always like to start by getting a feel of the people to whom I'm speaking. So, and I don't know, some of you might be on the phone listening, or if you're on video. I'm just curious if you have any questions that drew you here. I'm interested in knowing, what were you hoping to hear about today, if there's anything specific, so I can make sure that I address that in my talk. If there's nothing specific, that's okay, I can just begin. But I was just wondering if there's anything in particular that drew you here today. So
can you define naturopathic medicine, please?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I will do that. Is there something else? I thought I saw
Sore back.
Sore back. Sore back brought you here today. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, Mike. I think you're muted. Well, Mike, I think you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, something very specific about steroid injections for osteoarthritis. Do those help relieve the pain, and are they safe, and how frequently you do it, et cetera, if you know about it?
Okay. Well, this is going to be a broad talk rather than talk about specific medical interventions, but that is a good question. I'll dance around that question. I will. I'll try to answer some of that. Other things. Is there any other? Oh, okay. Well, all right. So first of all, let me explain naturopathic medicine. So I am a naturopathic physician. I graduated from Bastyr University here in, it's in Kenmore, Washington. It was in Seattle. naturopathic physicians are licensed primary care providers in the state of Washington and about 18 other states. And what that means is you can come and see us for any medical condition. If you have the diagnosis of cancer, you have to be co-managed by an oncologist, but we treat and diagnose, evaluate health issues. So we are primary care providers in the state of Washington. In fact, in the state of Washington, we do accept several types of insurance. Where we specialize, so our specialty is in natural approaches to healthcare. Although we are licensed to prescribe synthetic medication, that's just not our first route. We are trained in herbal medicine, diet, nutrition, nutritional medicine. We're also trained in manipulation of the spine and extremities. So we can also do that type of manipulation, osseous manipulation. So we also do a number of other body techniques as well. We are trained in counseling and behavioral medicine, which is what I'm going to be speaking on. We also are trained in homeopathy. And I'm probably forgetting some other things, just also lifestyle medicine. So diet, herbal medicine, nutrition, and as I said, we are licensed to prescribe synthetic medications. So we also are trained in minor surgery procedures as well. So you can come and see us for any condition. Now, when I began my naturopathic career over 25 years ago, I started HIV care. And so this was also before there was a lot of HIV medications that changed the course of the disease. And when I was doing it, I was working on using herbal medicine, nutritional medicine to help augment the treatments that people were seeing conventional medical doctors for. Since then, my focus has shifted more to mind-body medicine. And so what mind-body medicine is really looking at how certain behaviors, lifestyle factors can influence our health. And I think as I talk about pain, this will make more sense. Now, I do have some slides and yeah, I might as well. I'm going to start to share some of those with you. So can everyone see that? Yep. Okay. So mind-body solutions for pain management. And it is June. Okay. So I always start with some quotes. You know, nature has placed mankind under governance of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. And isn't that true? You know, when we feel pleasure, we want more of it. We'll do everything we can to get it. When we feel pain, we'll do everything we can to avoid it. And I share this quote with my medical students all the time because I think they often forget this. And see if this fits with anybody who's listening to this. Doctors think a lot of patients are cured who simply quit in disgust. You know, how many times have we seen a practitioner who's like, nothing's changed, nothing changed, we stop. So, pain. You know, when we think of pain, you know, what do you really think of when we think of pain? You know, Merriam-Webster talks about it in relationship to punishment as a penalty. And yet, you know, pain, what is pain? We feel pain because its main purpose is to protect us. It's helping protect us. If I twist my ankle and feel pain, it keeps me from walking on it so I don't injure it anymore. So we can say that for the most part, the purposes of pain is to protect us. Now, there's an organization called the International Association for the Study of Pain, and they have defined it this way. And I think that it's an important definition. It's an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience. And we'll talk about emotions in a moment too. But an unpleasant sensory experience, and here's a key, associated with actual or potential tissue damage, or described in such terms that are always subjective, unquestionably a sensation in part or parts of the body, but also unpleasant. and therefore an emotional experience. So what am I getting from this? That there is some unpleasant sensation in the body. And there's something called interoceptive system. And this means all the information that the body gets below the skin. We have something called exteroception and interoception. And when you think of the five senses, when you think of smell, sight, smell, sight, sound, and taste, for example, those are outside experiences that come to the body. They help us know about the outside world, sound, pressure changes that come and press upon your eardrum, light that impresses upon your retina. So that's called exteroception. Exteroception, that's where we are learning about the world around us from our senses, but that they come to us. Interoception, on the other hand, is everything underneath the skin. It's what you feel. We have two sets of nerves, more, but we have afferent and efferent nerves. And basically what that is efferent with an E, E-F-F-E-R-E-N-T. Efferent nerves are nerves that go from the brain down to the body, and they cause movement. They cause things to move or change. So if I lift my arm, it's because my efferent system told me what to do. Now, if I tap on my arm and I feel that sensation, the feeling is afferent, which is also what we call affect too. Remember the word affect, A-F-F-E-C-T, affect, when we talk about emotions, or affect. It's about sensation that we're feeling. So it's about the body giving information back to the brain stem. So those are afferent nerves. So we know we feel something because of our nervous system. So if I look at that definition, I don't know if you're noticing any of the cartoons I put in there. This one, they're doing surgery and they pull out a porcupine and it says, well, I guess that explains the abdominal pain. So what we have so far is pain is an unpleasant experience. But what was also in that initial definition is that it could be potential or actual tissue damage. So we could have pain without tissue damage, but it's the sensory system. We're getting sensory information that goes up to our brain, and then we have to perceive it and then generate a response. So what does that mean? We only feel pain when we have consciousness. Pain is an aspect of consciousness. Just think about it. If you have surgery and you go under anesthesia, your brain's still working, your body's still working, but you're not under conscious awareness. And during surgery, they're doing some damage to your tissues, but you don't feel it. So pain. There's no pain until the signal reaches the level of the brain. And you don't need to look at all these fancy things. Maybe it makes you understand it a little bit more, but there's no pain until the signal from where we hurt the tissue goes up to the brain. So pain is a creation of our brain, and it may or may not be associated with what we call a nociceptive event, meaning a damage to the tissue event. People can have damage to the tissue without feeling pain, and you can have pain without any damage to the tissue. And that's where pain management is so complicated. So I'm going to say it one more time. You can have tissue damage and no pain. You can have no tissue damage and pain. So tissue damage is neither sufficient or necessary in order to feel pain. And how much a person is in pain may not be related to the degree of pathology. Now, I don't want anyone taking from this, oh, am I making it up? We are not saying that pain is made up. So please, if you hear that, that is not my message at all. And I'll talk more about that. So let's just talk a little bit. Some people are disregarding this, but we have two ways of looking at pain. We can talk about acute pain and persistent or chronic pain. And acute pain is usually less than 3 months. And in acute pain, there's usually tissue damage. You cut yourself, you smashed your finger against in the door of the car, you hit something. Persistent pain or chronic pain is usually longer than 3 months. And what's interesting about the research is that we find that many people in chronic pain often do not have tissue damage or metabolic disease. Usually, there has been some resolution, and even after the tissues have been repaired, you continue to feel pain. Again, that doesn't mean it's made up. It doesn't mean you have psychological issues. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that the pain pathways may still be firing. Okay. So many people love to assume, see, as I look at this picture, I already start to cringe. Many people assume that where we feel pain is just like one area of the brain, and that is not true. There's something that the researcher Lorimer Moseley, who I'll speak about in a little bit, calls neurotags, that when we have some pain, multiple areas of the brain light up. It's a complex neural network. So that means brain cells, neurons, are activated throughout the whole brain when we feel pain. So just to go back to this idea of you can have tissue damage and not feel pain, or you can have no tissue damage and feel pain. For example, I don't know if you guys know, but I had a Ninja blender. I used to make smoothies with my Ninja blender. And if you've ever seen a Ninja blender, they're very, 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 very sharp. So one day I made my smoothie and I was cleaning out the Ninja blender in the sink, the white porcelain, or whatever sink. And I'm using soapy water and hot water, and I'm looking down, and all of a sudden the water in the sink is really, really, really red. And I'm going, oh, did I put beets in there? I don't think I put beets. I thought it was just like greens and stuff. And then I'm just going along, washing it. And then all of a sudden I look at the red, and I notice that the red is coming from my hand, coming from my finger that I had sliced very deeply with my Ninja blender. Up until that point, so there's already blood in there. There's already soap in my finger. I had already cut myself. I felt no pain. Then I saw it and I felt a lot of pain and screamed and dropped the blender in the sink because the soap was like burning and it hurt. But I didn't feel pain initially. So pain is a part of all of this. It has to be registered in our conscious brain. Now, that example gives us clues to how we could work with pain. You don't need to know this, but this is a list of all the different parts of the brain that could be involved in this creation of what we call a neurotag, meaning I hurt myself and all these areas are firing. Part of my prefrontal cortex is trying to solve the problem. What can I do? My hippocampus is trying to remember this so I won't do it again. My amygdala is asking whether I'm safe. So there's a number of parts of the brain that get activated in pain. Again, this is an important message because what it's saying is when you have any pain, it's not just one area of your brain that's firing. So part of this message here is that something the Dalai Lama wrote about. I think this is in the book, The Art of Happiness. I think he wrote this in The Art of Happiness, that to lessen the suffering of pain, we need to make the crucial distinction between the pain of pain and the pain we create by our thoughts about pain. I'll give you another example. In February, I had my second COVID shot. I got the Moderna. So the first 12 hours, I was great. Oh, no problem. And then the next 24 hours, I got a fever. I had a massive headache and I hurt. And I was laying in bed, couldn't move. And as my pain in my head was happening, I was like, oh, how long is this going to go on? Oh. And as I had that thought, the thought about the pain intensified. But then all of a sudden I said, oh, This means the vaccine is working. I'm feeling this, the vaccine's working. My pain's, it's going to just last maybe 24 hours, 48 hours at the most. I still had the original pain, but the thought about the pain caused a lessening of the pain. And we'll speak more about this. I'll talk about more about this in a minute. So this brings us to talk about mind-body interventions. And I start mind-body interventions by talking about this term in research by Suzanne Kobasa called hardiness. A lot of people have taken her work and talked about the word. You've most likely heard resilience. Hardiness has several components. The first is commitment. And what we mean by commitment is that whenever we talk about our health, whether it's our pain, whether it's a diagnosis of hypertension or diabetes or anything, to not just identify as the pain. Commitment means we're committed to our lives and that we actually have other aspects to our life so that we're not putting, if you want to use the expression, all our eggs in one basket. I'm not just one thing. So many times I work with people who see themselves as a chronic pain person. That's it. My definition, my identity is that I'm somebody with pain. Suzanne Kobasa, who started the research in hardiness, her original work was with executives of Ma Bell. Remember Ma Bell when there was one telephone company? And when the company broke up, they looked at the people who were the hardiest, the people who were the most resilient. They didn't just think of themselves as their job. The individuals who said, I'm just my job and identified as my job, did the poorest. She then did her study on breast cancer survivors and people with HIV and found that the people, the long-term survivors of breast cancer, had this hardiness. They didn't just identify as a breast cancer patient. They said, oh, I have breast cancer. Breast cancer is present, but I also am a member of my community. I golf, I do all these other things. So commitment, you're not just this one thing. And from a healthcare perspective, they found that individuals with high levels of commitment are active members of their healthcare team, meaning they don't just do whatever their doctor says. Now, interestingly, difficult patients are often defined in the medical research as people who ask questions. I encourage everybody to be a difficult patient because difficult patients have a better survival rate. Ask questions of your doctor. So that's commitment. The next level of hardiness was challenge, that rather than view the situation, the medical condition, the diagnosis as a threat, they viewed it as a challenge. People who have this challenge parameter, when they receive a diagnosis, when they feel pain, they don't usually ask, why me? They ask, what now? You know, I know a lot of people, and I hear a lot of people do this new age speak. So when they say, oh, that was challenging, and they really mean that was outright hard. So challenge is really, how do I look at this as a threat, not as a threat, but as a challenge, something that I can work with. And then the last part of what hardiness was by Kobasa's work was control. Control was the idea that no matter what happens, I can exert some influence. Look, I can't control whether it's sunny or it's raining. I can't control whether everyone takes the vaccine or not. I can't control what's going to happen with the virus. I can't control a lot of things. But what I can control is how I want to relate and orient to it. So control parameter goes back to challenge and commitment. So again, people who are more resilient have commitment, challenge, and control. People took Kobasa's work and then they added another level to it, which is what we see with living communities. Community, that when we have a sense of connection with others, and this is what makes the pandemic so difficult for a lot of us. We could be a very committed person. We could think of our lives as not just our diagnosis or our disease or our pain. We could have this idea to look at things as a challenge and not a threat. And we can even look at our attitude. But when we don't have community, we can feel isolated, alone, and it's hard to maintain commitment, challenge, and control. So people who deal with pain have a high level of hardiness. How do we encourage that? So there's two things I want to talk about here as modulation: attentional modulation and emotional modulation. And these are going to be the different mind-body techniques we can use when dealing with, managing, regulating our chronic pain. In the research, they talk about attentional modulation is where are you directing your attention? What are you focusing on? And they found that when we distract ourselves, we can decrease the intensity of the pain, but the disturbance might still be the same. So it might ache, the ache might still be there, but the intensity, how intense it is, can decrease. Emotional modulation, on the other hand, is regulating our mood. And that when we change our mood, the disturbance might change. We might not find it as irritating, yet the intensity could stay the same. It might be a 7 out of 7, but it doesn't disturb us. So there's this difference between intensity and how much it disturbs us. You know, if I put a little pebble in your shoe, the pain might not be really intense, but if I say walk down the hall, you're like, oh, that's so irritating that I can't handle that. So this is what we mean by disturbance and intensity. And I'll explain more in a minute. So everybody doing okay so far? Just going to say, I'm just going to assume. If you have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. Someone will read that to me. Okay, so you've all heard possibly of positive affirmations, positive self-talk. And I know in the 70s, there was a large movement about like talking about positive affirmations. And I know some people go, oh, that's self-talk. I don't really like that. But we are all rehearsing something. We're all rehearsing how safe we feel in the world. So there's a scale that we talk about is how painful would that be? And on a scale of 1 to 10, just notice where you would place this on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most pain. If I say, imagine you bump your shin badly on the edge of a table, a glass table, for instance. Now, some of you might actually be feeling this in your body. Others might be having to really think about it. But how bad would that be? Imagine you burn your tongue on some hot coffee, a hot drink. Notice if your body is responding. Imagine your muscles are slightly sore as a result of physical activity. You went for a walk or you did some gardening more than you usually do, and your muscles are sore, and you wake up the next day. How painful would that be? Imagine you trap your finger in a drawer. Imagine you have sunburn. I actually got that on my head the other day. Some sunburn on your shoulders or head. How painful would that be? And imagine you graze your knee and fall when you fall off your bike. How painful would that be? These are our pain narratives. And most of us don't realize that when we think of things, if you think of any of those, you imagine any of those scenarios and you feel your body responding, your body's endocrine, immunological, nervous system processes are already firing, and that can contribute to pain. We all have pain narratives. And so think about your own pain: bad back, bad knee, headaches, muscle aches. What are you telling yourself and rehearsing in your head? Some people will say someday there will be a medical breakthrough for pain and that will cure it. Are you waiting for that? Or if you feel pain and it keeps persisting, do you just say, I haven't found the right thing, the right doctor, the right remedy, the right protocol? Some people, when they talk about their pain, they talk about, I want other people to know how sick I am because then I can't work. Some people have said to me, I don't dare go outside or do things because people will think that I'm not really sick or I don't really have pain. The physical therapist told me that the cause of my pain was from all the lifting that I did. So then we start to avoid that. So let me hit this a different way. What we imagine, what we rehearse, what we tell ourselves influences our physiology. Okay? I haven't been driving much, so I don't see that traffic over there, but you might see an invoice. Or remember going to doctors' waiting rooms? I don't think they're like this yet. And you see all those people there, or insurance policies. Do you feel what is happening in your body when you think of these or imagine those? You might not notice whether the muscles start to brace. You start to change your breathing. You start to have a narrative. Like if you're in that traffic, oh, this is just so terrible. I'll never do this. Notice what that does. That narrative is not just in your brain. That narrative is in your body. So again, I could have started with this. I want you to imagine now you are on an all expense paid trip, COVID-free, to some beautiful, warm, not too hot, just right, island retreat spa, all expense paid trip. You're sitting there on the beach, this beautiful breeze, and someone gives you a fresh lemon. Someone gives you fresh lemonade, but there's a fresh lemon right there, and they just cut it, and you pick it up, and you just squeeze a little bit of the lemon juice on your tongue. Now, I can't see everybody in this view, but I'm wondering, are you experiencing anything as you think about that lemon juice on your tongue? Do you feel anything? If you begin to feel your mouth pucker, your lips pucker, the tongue start to salivate, you are having a biological change. You're having a biochemical messengers being sent to secrete salivary amylase to help digest. Your body's already predicting you're about to have a lemon, and it changes. So the important point to remember that is where your mind goes, your body follows. If you have the pain narrative that this will never get better, notice how that impacts your body. So when people tell me, oh, guided imagery, oh, that doesn't do anything. If you had that, if you feel your muscles soften when you think of being on that all expense paid trip, then you're going to have a change. So what happened in your mind body? A lot of people with chronic persistent pain, and I don't like the language here, but they call it in the research catastrophize. And again, I don't like this definition. This is the conventional definition: an exaggerated negative mental set brought to bear during actual or anticipated painful experience. How many people before they go to the dentist already have more pain or a headache, or they find their blood pressure goes up? Blood pressure going up because our body starts to have a physical response just by thinking, oh, this is going to be painful. So pain catastrophizing can contribute to development of other emotions like anxiety, fear, or depression, in addition, associated with the pain. So we could have fear of pain, fear of disability, fear of the cause of pain, fear that it's not going to change. We can have anxiety about these things. We can experience all these emotions when we feel pain. And a lot of this is connected back to our pain narratives. Now, if you get a chance, Lorimer Moseley, if you want to see his TED Talk, he has 2, I believe. He's a pain doctor in Adelaide, in Australia, and he talks about why things hurt. Lorimer Moseley tells the story much better than I, because he has his great accent when he says it. Is he was walking, I think he was going swimming, and he was walking to go to the swimming hole, and he gets to the swimming hole and he wakes up in the hospital. He had been bitten by one of the most deadliest or most poisonous snakes in Australia. And when he got there, he passed out, and his friends were around, so they rushed him to the hospital, and he survived. He doesn't recollect getting bitten. Months go by, he heals, right? And months go by, he goes hiking with some of his friends, and all of a sudden he feels something graze his ankle, and he screams and falls to the ground, And his friends are all looking at him and then said, "You just got scratched by a stick." I was like, I didn't even know. So what that means is it's a neurotag. He didn't feel pain initially on that snake bite, but then his brain became sensitized to the experience of anything touching his leg. So anything touches his leg, he had an exaggerated pain response. The scratch on his leg didn't cause significant damage, but he felt the pain nonetheless. And his argument is we all do this to varying degrees. So Lorimer Moseley asks everyone in chronic pain, and I do this too, about safety and threat. When we don't feel safe in the world, well, just think about this. We could talk about this on the existential level. If I don't feel safe, that my life is in jeopardy, my body naturally mobilizes. It activates the sympathetic system. I'm reducing this a little bit, making it too simplistic, but I either activate my sympathetic nervous system, I release cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline, which then causes my heart to beat faster. It opens up the airways. It causes the blood to move from certain areas to others. Muscles will constrict, they'll brace, they'll grip, they'll tighten. And if that goes on for a long time, that will lead to chronic inflammation and a bunch of other dis-eases. So when we don't feel safe on that existential level, we're more prone to experience pain and we're more prone to catastrophize. When we feel threat of any level, like if I think, oh my gosh, if I don't do this presentation well, they might fire me, then that's threatening to me. So Lorimer Moseley asks all his patients with pain, step away from the pain for a moment and think about your life. What in your life, in your thoughts, in your beliefs, in your behaviors, in your relationships, what implies threat and what implies safety? His contention, I support this, but his contention is a lot of times in chronic pain, we don't feel safe in the world. And that if we are able to look at how we don't feel safe, that might be the issue to address. Doesn't make the pain magically disappear. No, he's not saying that, but it can change the intensity of the pain. In 97, there was a researcher who coined the phrase integrated pain, and then he also said it's contrasted with naked pain. Now, I don't know if anybody remembered I think it was Bare Aspirin commercials. Carly Simon sang the song, "I Haven't Got Time for the Pain." Does anybody remember that? Haven't got time for the pain. I think it was Bare Aspirin in the 70s. But integrated pain is when we feel pain and this is perception, this is cognitive. We think that it's just a natural part of the world. I was out the other day, I started exercising. I hadn't exercised in a long time and I was doing some push-ups and things. And the next morning my chest was sore. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. I did some exercise. But if I woke up and I didn't exercise and my muscles were sore, I might go, oh my God, what's wrong? Oh my God, is this a problem? What happened with the advent of aspirin and other pain medications is we started to separate pain from the rest of our lives. Not just on what we think is safe and unsafe, but from just the rest of our daily activity. And he called it naked pain, where he said that now if you have pain, it's a medical problem. We need to treat it. And what Lorimer Moseley and other researchers are saying is maybe not. Now, there was a question about back pain. And I'm going to talk about 2 books or 3 books, but one is by John Sarno, and this is several years old. This is from the 90s or 80s, I believe, but he's written a few other books since then. Sarno was an orthopedic surgeon in a major hospital in New York, and he would do regular MRIs. People come in and say, oh, I hurt my back. I was lifting something. Oh, I bent over. I hurt it. And it's like, I hurt my back. And so he would do the MRI and they'd say, oh, yep. Well, there's a compression here. Your nerve root is blocked here. The disc slipped, and do surgery. So somebody once said, well, why don't you check people of the same age, the same background, and just do MRIs on them who don't have back pain. And interestingly, there's a number of studies on this. Bowden and his colleagues did this. Other people have done this, where they found on MRIs, on MRI scans, there was still damage to the nerve roots, the herniated discs, yet the majority of people didn't report any pain. And that really influenced Sarno. He's like, wait a minute, if people have herniated discs and nerve roots are compressed and they don't have any pain, then what's the cause of the pain? There's other studies that look at whiplash in other countries, very fascinating whiplash studies where they look at, I think it was the Netherlands, but a bunch of other countries. So what's the thing that we do in this country? You get rear-ended, maybe at only 20 miles an hour. What does the doctor say to you? Whether it's a naturopath, whether it's a chiropractor, whether it's an ER doc, the common thing that is being told is, ooh, you get hit, rest, put ice on, watch it. You might not have pain now, but in 72 hours, you might have pain. So it could happen anytime now in 72 hours. And people commonly say that. When we get told that, what's interesting is we become hypervigilant. It sets the stage for being hypervigilant. And in other countries where, you get rear-ended and they don't say, oh, you might get whiplash. They go, oh, okay, you're fine. In countries where there's no preconceived notion of chronic pain arising from those rear-end collisions, people often don't have long-term disability or pain. And there's other studies on this with even derby drivers and whiplash. So what I'm saying here is even the medical establishment might be contributing to our lack of safety, to our hypervigilance, and to our catastrophizing. So Sarno, I think this is Neuroplastics. This is the website on the left, Neuroplastics with an IX. It's a great resource to go to that website. But Schubiner, who's the author, wrote this book, Neuroplastic Transformation, with a C. And this is his book. And he says the brain keeps processing there's pain because it feels a threat. He said, what if we stopped talking about the pain and start talking about what's really happening in our lives where we don't feel threat? So he does a few things. He's been written up in these other books. His work has been written up by Norman Doidge. Schubiner, Moskowitz, I'm sorry, that was Moskowitz, not Schubiner. Moskowitz, who wrote the Neuroplastics, and it's his website, shows all his patients with chronic pain this image. This is an image of those neurotags, different areas of the brain that light up when you feel an acute pain. You cut yourself, you stub your toe, you get a sunburn. And these areas light up. But now notice if you can see this. See how big those little areas of light are? What happens in persistent or long-term pain is they fire with more consistency and more intensity. So one thing that Moskowitz trains people, and here's a technique then, a mind-body technique, is guided imagery. Noticing our narratives. Oh, is this going to go on forever? Oh, how long is this going to happen? Oh, I want to get rid of the pain. He has people visualize whenever they feel pain, back pain, shoulder pain, headache, that their brain looks like this. And then he has them visualize that the pain turns down. And then he has them visualize their brain like this. And I'm sorry, that's the technique. It's a meditation, a guided imagery exercise where when you feel the pain, you imagine parts of the brain lit up and you just imagine taking it, like I said, from this down to this, down to this. And this is no pain and no parts of the brain are firing. I've done this before with myself when I felt pain, and I just imagined someone pouring a watering can of cool liquid over my brain, turning down the fire. For some people, that imagery really can help lessen the pain, surprisingly. And so this is studies about meditation, that meditation can impact different parts of the brain and lead to different cortical thickening. So there's areas, I don't need to go into those studies, but this one is like when you have rest and pain on the left, and then when you meditate and feel the pain. So I don't know if you remember a little bit ago, I said that there's attentional modulation and emotional modulation. Attentional modulation is what we're focusing on and the narrative that we're giving it. In the studies on meditation, there's many, 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 many different types of meditation. But in these studies, they were doing more of a mindfulness meditation. And what that was is when people feel the pain, they simply describe it without talking about intensity. The practice of mindfulness is feeling the sensation without actually judging it, without giving it a meaning, like, oh my God, this is going to last forever. I can't stand this pain. When that happens, our pain signals and our pain narratives increase. So neuroplastics, and that was that work of Moskowitz. I showed you the images of the brain. He has in his book several different techniques to help with pain. One, and this is the attentional modulation, the first two, describe the sensation of the pain. Can you describe it without layering it with issues of like good or bad, right or wrong? How long is it going to be? What's the sensation actually like? Most of us feel a pain and we tighten up, our shoulders raised, we hold our breath. And all we're doing is activating cortisol, making the pain worse. So first we describe the sensation, throbbing, buzzing. Interestingly, pain pathways are very specific. So did you ever like bump into something and the first thing you do is you smack your arm and you start to rub it? Have you ever like rubbed around the pain? The reason that can lessen pain is the pain fibers, the afferent that go to the brain, are different than pressure receptors. So when you put pressure on your arm, you are blocking the pain signal. So whichever is stronger will go there. This is why there's also products like Icy Hot. There's other chemicals that like cause more heat in the muscle or cold. Temperature receptors are different than pain receptors. So that's why some people, when you put hot on or take a hot bath or a heating pad, the pain relieves. Some of it could be because the heat relaxes the muscle. But many times the heat or the cold is just blocking the pain signal from going up to the brain. And the more we rehearse these pain signals going up to the brain, the more we entrain them. So I jumped ahead. That was number 4 here where it says touch. That's a different level. That was the touch where I said pressure or cold, hot and cold. Describing the sensation, I have no idea what I just did, sorry. Describing the sensation means just describe the actual sensation. Is it dull? Is it sharp? Is it buzzing, stitching, stabbing, diffuse, constant, intermittent? And what we're doing here with these first two, describe the sensation or the sensation of pain versus the feelings of anxiety or fear, is separating our thoughts about pain, our feelings about pain, our judgments of pain from the actual pain sensation. Many times when we feel a pain, what is happening is that we when we feel the pain, when we feel it and we start to judge it, we tighten up. Now, the memory of pain is about emotional I'm sorry, not memory of pain. The memory of being soothed by a loved one is emotional modulation. So whereas mindfulness meditation is about feeling something, the pain, or focusing on the breath, and just focusing your attention on that one thing. There's different types of meditation where you think about someone you love or appreciate without question. My colleague who works at the VA says that the main thing that people think about, the vets think about when they're in pain and we're doing pain treatment, is they think about their animals. Because people can be complicated, as you might know. So I think about one of my cats, and I notice that when I get into that sense of love and appreciation, my whole nervous system can regulate. So I remember I was doing a study, a biofeedback study, and I had to get into a certain brain state. And so I started thinking about my spouse. That didn't work. I thought about my family. That didn't work. Then I started thinking about my cat. And then I got into this nice I felt calm and relaxed. Then I started to judge myself for thinking about my cat, not my family. Like, if I was a better person, I would think about my family. Then I just thought about my pet cat. So emotional modulation, where we focus on something we love and appreciate, cultivating that feeling of gratitude. A lot of people talk about writing gratitude journals every day, just 5 things. There's some studies that show thinking 5 things every day that you're grateful for can help ease pain over time. Because what we're doing is, rather than catastrophizing, we're thinking about what we're grateful for. It could be the same thing each day. I've got a bed. The bed is comfortable. Okay, at least I got a roof over my head. Or it could be I'm grateful for my cat. I already talked about touch. I just want to mention smell and chanting. Smell is where essential oils, things that smell pleasing to us, can actually soften our experience. It can calm us down. But so can humming and chanting. And there's been interesting studies that I've looked at where people with chronic sinus infections who hum 20 minutes a day can decrease the congestion in their nose. And there is actually a clear mechanism of that when we hum, we actually increase something called nitric oxide in our nitric oxide. Ooh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. My slides jumped ahead. Ooh. It's nitric oxide in the nostrils, and it's unfavorable to unfriendly bacteria and viruses. So humming and chanting can actually help us. The last thing I wanted to talk about is breathing. And I know I'm getting close to time, that I wanted to show you a breath pacer. Now, I have done for Air Living, I've done some talks on breathing before, just on breathing. And it's amazing how important breathing and breath work is. But slow diaphragmatic breathing, when our exhale is equal or longer than our inhale, so like 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, if you can actually do something called regulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is our 10th cranial nerve. It's the biggest, most wandering nerve in the body. And it instantly slows our heart rate down. Anytime you're feeling stressed, anytime you're feeling pain, notice if you do the common thing where most people inhale and hold their breath. So just think about it. Like, think about playing hide and seek. Brad's coming around the corner, and what do? You go, and we hold our breath. That increases our epinephrine, that increases our heart rate, that increases our muscle tension. But just take a breath out. Now, you might not be able to do it as long as I'm doing, but just a slow belly breath. There's so many people talking about this, but we can go into the whole mechanism of this. Slow belly breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, slows our heart rate down, and actually stimulates something called the anti-inflammatory cholinergic pathway, meaning it can have an anti-inflammatory effect on us. So there's a number of things. I flew through this. I'm sorry, I just realized I flew through this. There's a number of things that I've said here that are important. That when you have pain, the pain may not be due to any remaining tissue damage at the moment. But how are you orienting to it? When you think of your pain, do you tighten up? Do you hold your breath? Do you get tight and tense? Or can you soften into it? Softening into it doesn't mean the pain's going to go away, but we can lessen the intensity or the discomfort from it. I want to know if people have other specific questions. There's a number of things I threw out here, and there's a lot that we can go into, but I want to know if anyone has any specific questions about anything I said or other things. I supervise at the Bastyr Center for Natural Health. I'm also in private practice, but we do a lot of these techniques. And I think there's a question. Yes.
Oh, I wanted to say,
Yes, Marilyn. Marilyn?
yes, I wanted to say that when you retire, you should make meditation tapes. You have a very soothing melodic voice.
Well, as a plug, I do have meditations on my website. My website is called thebreathspace.com, thebreathspace.com, and there's a meditation page, and you can listen. Some of them are even for download. So I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you. And I actually do live stream meditations. If you go to my website, just on that page, there's a thing every Monday and every Thursday at 8 a.m. You just go on there to that page, and I do a live stream of guided meditations. They're different meditations each time. Many times they're mindfulness meditation or safe place meditation. So feel free to look there. And I do hope to eventually retire and do more meditation. So thank you for saying that. Any other questions? You could always contact me through my website at any time if you have more questions.
Yeah, feel free to take off your, you can take yourself off mute and ask questions. Oh, Angela, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Looks like she accidentally raised her hand, but I don't think she has a question.
Okay. Okay.
If there's one thing we could read, which is not too long, what would you recommend?
That's a great question, because that Sarno book by John Sarno on healing back pain, it is not just about back pain. That might be, it's an easy read. There are a few videos. I should have said that. There are a few videos out there, movies out there about this, why things hurt, I believe. But the Joseph Sarno Healing Back Pain is really a great reference, because it gives you a concept of what I'm talking about here. The Neuroplastics book, if you go to his website, Neuroplastics with an X, he has a book that I think is actually easy to read, and it gives you some tips too. So those two would be where I might start.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, if we don't have any more questions, thank you for attending today. We will be emailing everyone an evaluation form, and we would love to hear your feedback on this presentation, as well as any suggestions you may have for future Zoom presentations. If you have any questions about the gardens at Town Square, please reach out to us at the number shown on the screen here, and let me share that real quickly. On the screen right here. And if you have a family member with memory loss, we also encourage you to join us for our next webinar event on Wednesday, June 9th, strategies for successful caregiving and family relationships with guest speaker David Troxel. So again, thank you, Dr. Lichtenstein, for speaking today, and thank you, everybody, for joining this presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.